This week, we welcome our good friend, Marc French, CISO and Managing Director at Product Security Group, to discuss security career ladders and how to advance your security career. In the Leadership and Communications section, challenges of a new CISO the first year, why a robust security culture begins with people, how cybersecurity leaders can chart the seas of business communication, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. With over half of enterprise security budgets going towards detection and response in 2020, the challenge is investing in solutions that can migrate and scale with your business. ExtraHop helps security teams spot threats up to 95% faster and respond 60% more efficiently in hybrid and multi-cloud environments with cloud-native network detection and response. Kick the tires in the full product demo at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. The question is simple. Have any of the systems on my network been compromised? The answer is harder than it should be. Enter AI Hunter. Active Countermeasures has automated and streamlined techniques used by the best pen testers and threat hunters in the industry to create AI Hunter, a network threat hunting solution that does the first pass of a hunt for you to identify systems that are most likely to be compromised and scores the results on a scale from 0 to 100. You can then research those systems in depth with AI Hunter. Focus your valuable time on the systems that need your expertise with AI Hunter. Sign up for a personal demo today at securityweekly.com/ACM.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 176, recorded June 8th, 2020. I am your host, Matt Alderman, here in Colorado. Joining me from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island is just Paul Asadorian. Jason didn't join him yet.
This is just Paul.
It's just
Paul, I guess, today.
Well, we thought after last week.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
I know. Jason, I thought you were going to be here.
I know. I wanted to so bad.
So on the line to join us remotely is Jason Albuquerque, not in studio with Paul, which is what we thought was going to happen this week.
I know.
You need that cigar in your hand, buddy. You need that cigar.
That's right.
Join us at InfoSec World 2020, June 22nd, 24th, now a fully virtual event. Security Weekly listeners save 15% off the InfoSec World Main Conference or World Pass. Visit securityweekly.com/ISW 2020. Click the register button to register with our discount code. Also, join the Security Weekly mailing list and receive your invite to our community Discord server by visiting securityweekly.com/subscribe and clicking the button to join the list. We're up to almost 600 people on Discord. Sam might correct me later. And we've got a bunch of people online now for the shows, which is a lot of fun. All right, our good friend, our guest for this segment, Marc French, is the CISO and Managing Director at PSG. He has more than 25 years of technology experience in engineering, operations, product management, and security. Prior to his current role, Marc was the SVP and Chief Trust Officer at Mimecast and has held a variety of senior security roles at Endurance Constant Contact, EMC RSA, Iron Mountain, Digital Guardian, and Dun Bradstreet. Marc is a frequent speaker at industry events and currently chairs the Mass TLC CISO group, as well as serving as the Vice President for InfraGard Boston. Marc, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
And thanks for shaving for us, buddy.
Yeah, I did shave, top and bottom.
Now, what we're going to... Yeah, he did his head too. And his chin, just so we're clear.
It's awesome.
All right. So, Marc, you started building. We'll get into the background a little bit, but we're going to talk the security career ladders. You had pinged me a few months back. You'd started developing these different career ladders for different positions within InfoSec and asked for my feedback. And what I thought was interesting is I'm like, this would make a great segment on Business Security Weekly for us to help educate people on, how to get into security, how to advance your career in security, all the way up to the illustrious CISO position, and then maybe have a conversation about you sure you really want to be a CISO? So give us the background on the career ladders.
So it's a long story past. I've been in security now for probably 15 years or so. And throughout my career, I've always had a mentor to kind of guide me through. I've been lucky. Not a lot of folks have that. And as I progressed up through security, what ended up happening is more and more folks came to me and said, hey, Mark, how do I progress? How do I get started in information security? How do I progress? How do I even choose which part of information security I should be in? So what I ended up doing is, launching a mentorship program probably 6 or 7 years ago when I got my first CISO gig. And then really it kind of evolved into this career ladders because I found myself giving out the same amount of advice over and over again. And I said, hey, you know what? Instead of me trying to hit the small segment of folks, why don't I just kind of pass this out to the general world? And I basically wrote it all down, threw it out on GitHub and said, here, folks, consume as you need to. So it's been interesting. I'll also tell you that I kind of ran into a little bit of a snag with my peers because in addition to the progression, I actually added salary information so that I did get a bit of feedback from my local CISO community about, giving out too much information for folks as they try to negotiate their new roles.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of that because I think it's actually really telling because I think, as we think about the different roles and the different positions, people are always wondering, well, what should I be paid for that role? You actually put it all in these career ladders, which I think is interesting because it at least gives people kind of a baseline of, well, this is kind of the min and max and what I should expect in that role. And if I want to move from one role to the other, you also give them a really nice kind of map that says, here's how to get to that next level. So I think it's a great tool, even though you took a little flack for
it. Yeah. So, it's been interesting, the feedback. So beyond the CISO feedback, I've got a lot of folks that have leaned in and said, this is amazing. It's broadened out a lot of folks' understanding of kind of the different roles in information security. Also, where to start. I find that a lot of folks, they're taking their cybersecurity college degree or they've got a music degree and they hear infosec is a good thing and they don't even know where to begin, what skills are required or what's not required is probably the other most interesting part of this discussion because there's a lot of FUD out there about, well, you need to have this, you need to have that. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's mostly FUD. There's a lot of things that are being broadcast out as required to be an infosec professional that aren't really necessary in order for you to be successful.
Yeah, that's very true. So let's talk about some of those basics to get into infosec, right? If I'm outside the industry and I want to get into infosec, where should I start? I think it's your general knowledge ladder, right? Is that the starting point for people to take a look at and say, this is kind of where I should think about my skill set to come into infosec?
Yeah, so I think it's probably broken down into two halves, right? If you look at the ladders, there's a kind of a general knowledge and a technical acumen piece. And I think the general knowledge is a great place to start. And really what general knowledge outlines is, here are the things you need to do from a business perspective in order to progress through. You got to have some attitude, you got to have some aptitude. You don't necessarily need a computer science degree. I'll be honest with you, some of the most successful infosec people that I've hired in the past on my teams have had math degrees, music degrees, art history degrees, but they had the attitude and aptitude to do it. So if you start with that kind of piece, and then you can layer on the technology piece. So the career ladder is really broken down into both halves. So you start with general knowledge, and then you kind of increase your technical acumen as you progress through.
Right. And then in those technical ladders, you break down some different areas, right? You've got, we'll talk Chief Security Officer later. I want to get that one kind of last. But you've got information risk, infrastructure security, physical security, and even product security, one of Paul's favorite areas.
Yeah, because I feel like it doesn't get enough love.
I would agree. It's niche-y, Paul.
It is.
If you think about the universe of security jobs, when I started, I did some RACF on the mainframe back in the late 90s as my first foray into security. You were kind of the security person and you did everything. Nowadays, you can specialize all over. And if you think about the roles that are out there, and infrastructure security is pretty standard fare. It's your classic security folks. Risk analysts, again, kind of a classic security role. But when you talk about product security and app security, it's a bit nichey. It's someone who's got some engineering or QA background who decided they want to be a security professional. So if you look at 100 infosec people, you might get 2 or 3 people that are in AppSec. And the reality of it is, and this is just my opinion, that's where the future is. If you think about everything shifting from hard gear over to infrastructure as code and everything else, I think you're going to see an increased demand for AppSec people, and there's just not a huge pipeline for it.
Well, and I think product security is different because they're externally facing apps, not internal. And I think that's a big difference, right? Because there's a lot of tricks you can play when you're building infrastructure and deploying applications for usage by the company and employees of the company, right? And maybe partners in other aspects. But when you're building a product that the public is going to use, I think there's a lot of aspects of security that change, and some of those tricks that you had before from infrastructure don't really apply.
And I'd even say that I purposely call it product security and not AppSec, because I think product security is a superset of AppSec.
Yeah.
So if you think about the traditional application security, you're thinking about code reviews and static analysis. Whereas if you think about what a product encompasses, Paul, to your point, it's deployment in a Docker image up on AWS. Mm-hmm. It's the hardware device that you may, that speaker that you're shipping, that robot that you're shipping. Mm-hmm. So I think, I think product security is even more comprehensive than your traditional AppSec side.
Yeah, even just think about a password reset and how that differs from, people can just call the help desk, right? And reset their password. Well, now you're Instagram, right? And people need to reset their passwords. Totally different
they are
story.
Not calling up Instagram, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of, folks have had issues with their password resets. It's a very common mistake, and it's a common bug bounty to point out.
Yes. A nice little attack vector to have somebody reset your password, send it to the wrong email address, and compromise your account, for example, right? You got to account for all that.
Yep.
So in here then is a really great kind of set of skills to move to the different levels. So walk us through the structure of one of these. Once I'm in a role, take any of them. How's it structured? And then kind of walk us through kind of the minimum requirements and how you progress through the different ladders.
Sure. So it's kind of a basic spreadsheety type thing. So if you look at, we'll take a technical track, information risk as an example. So within there, across the top of the header, it lists your progression of title and career and grade. So you generally start out as an associate risk analyst with no experience, and then progress all the way up to, say, a consulting level risk analyst or an architect on the more technical tracks. So across the top of that, you'll see as you progress from level to level, how to get, what's going to be required from you on the vertical axis, which is all of the skill groups. So if you read down, what you'll see on the left is individual functional skill areas, and it talks about the necessary requirements to move from associate to regular analyst to senior analyst to principal to consulting. So what it allows you to do is look across and say, I'm a senior risk analyst today. I go down the vertical and I actually look at every one of the skills on the left. It will tell me these are the skills that you need to have in order to be a senior. So if you're in that role now, it's great because you can pressure test this against what you're doing to see if you're actually fulfilling all the requirements of a senior. So now if you think about it, I want to go to principal. I look to the right of that in the principal column and I go down the list. It will tell me that if I'm at this level as a senior, here's what I need to be a consultant or a principal. So you know exactly what you need to achieve for each one of the skill areas to move from the current role you're in to the next role.
Yeah, so when you're in a discipline, this is a great tool to really help you understand what you have to master to move to that next level. What happens when you want to cross the streams, for lack of a better term? I'm in an information risk role and I want to go into the SOC. How would you How would you make that crossover with the ladders?
So the good news is on the general knowledge side, not the technical side, it's pretty consistent. So it's really a function of what grade you're in, whether you're an associate, senior. So those skills are immediately transferable across. I think when you try to cross the streams, it gets a little bit tougher because you need to start building up. Here's the reality. A lot of times you're not going to be able to laterally transfer at the same level that you're at. So if you're a consultant level risk analyst who has not been a technologist in your past, to jump into a consultant level SOC analyst is likely not going to happen. So you need to recognize that that's likely going to be the scenario when you cross the streams, and that you may have to, I don't want to say downgrade, but maybe that's the right word for it, downgrade to a different level in order for you to kind of swap over into that career.
Yeah, and that's true of a lot of different careers and a lot of different fields, right? If you make a transition, if it's a big enough transition, sometimes you got to start from the bottom up again.
And some of them are easier than others.
Yeah.
I'll say, SOC analyst to infrastructure analyst, the jump isn't as high. If I was going to say risk analyst to product security person, the lift is pretty high in order to get there. So you're likely going to start at the bottom of the rung. Whereas if you're an infrastructure person moving into the SOC with a pretty solid sysadmin background and able to do some log analysis anyway, you might not drop all the way down to the bottom to start over again.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this tool that you presented to us, and I look at it as something that I can heavily use in collaboration with something like the NICE framework, right? The NICE framework is, myself and other CISOs are really struggling on creating job descriptions within our teams, and a lot of organizations lean on the NICE framework to help build that, but it was missing something, right? It was missing career road mapping. And in this, I can see leveraging as a compensating framework to help with the whole road mapping gap that I've had within my organization.
And the good news is as part of the set, we've done the heavy lift for NICE mapping, sir. Right. So if you take a look in each individual discipline, it not only has kind of what the career progression is, but we took a shot at the NICE mappings. So you can actually see the individual skill criteria on the left inside ours actually maps to the NICE criteria on the other side. So if you're using NICE as the foundation, you'll have the mapping between what we produced and what the NICE is coming out with.
Yeah, and Jason, I think your point's very valid, right? Writing job descriptions for these positions, right? I think this is the challenge that we see in the industry when these jobs get posted. What skill sets are you looking for? What are the responsibilities? Are you right sizing the description with the actual role? And this has been a challenge with HR for a long time. So I think your comment here is very valid, is some of this data can actually get integrated into these job descriptions.
And that's the key to my point, right? Because we've struggled for so long working with our HR departments on creating that right job description, right role. Many times our HR department is saying, all right, well, what's the career progression for these individuals once they come into our organization? And it's been difficult to map that, right? Leveraging this along with the NICE framework, I think, is going to be a great tool that'll allow myself and my managers to sit down with our HR department and say, hey, this is what the industry is doing right now. Let's align to this.
I think the other interesting thing is I'll call it the purple squirrel analysis, right? So you see this all the time with job descriptions that come out and they throw every acronym in there. I've spoken to some other leaders in organizations, especially smaller organizations, that are unclear about what they want to hire. And they'll put, I want a senior risk analyst, a senior product security analyst, and a senior technologist on the SOC all in one job description. And really, this is a pressure test for that to say, I'm not sure you're really going to find that role in the wild. You need to kind of think about what you really want to achieve with this security role and focus it in on these ladders, because what you're asking this person to do, there's 4 of those in the world somewhere, and they're likely not going to work for you.
And they're wondering why they get nobody apply for the jobs, right?
Exactly, right. And they wonder why the rec is open, Jason, for a year and a half.
Yeah, for
right?
8 months.
We don't know. We're not getting good candidates. Well,
right,
yeah.
Because you're looking for the purple squirrel.
You're looking for the purple squirrel, right? And there's only 4 of those.
Exactly right. Now, the CISO ladder, I want to get to the CISO ladder, right? Because the CISO ladder it's pretty fixed. There's not a progression really here. It's just, you just lay out a set of requirements for the CISO role. Let's talk about the CISO ladder a little bit, because I think it's interesting. I see different types of CISOs where I could potentially see progressions, but you've got it kind of all laid out as one set of requirements.
Yeah, and again, it's a bit of an amalgamation. It's our ideal of a CISO of what they should have and not have from a skill set perspective. The way we think about it, and you'll actually see it in the career ladder called business security manager. You'll see this concept of a deputy CISO in there because it's really business focused. But the CISO is meant to be the pinnacle role in the org. So you're supposed to really possess all of the skills that are in there. Now, you could make an argument that for a large company, some of those may be more applicable. For a smaller company, they may not. But generally speaking, a CISO tends to be a well-rounded business professional. And in addition to having some technical acumen, more or less depending on the size of the org, you got to be a straight up business person. So the skills that are represented in there, Matt, are pretty standard, and what we feel is kind of what a good CISO should look like. Good in quotes.
Oh, yeah, very valid. I mean, because I was thinking about deputy CISOs and or multinationals where you have kind of CISOs at the business unit versus kind of a more corporate CISO. How do you account for those kinds of scenarios? And what you said, it's in your business security manager ladder that really accounts for those use cases under CISO, right?
Yeah. So I actually have that role right at EMC. So it's in the business security manager role, it accounts for this concept of group CISO, deputy CISO. They're all kind of baked into that role. The CISO career ladder is meant to be the pinnacle for that.
Got it.
And it's pretty amazing the skills, and as we go through them, skills we've talked about in the show, like how many different types of skills you need to reach that CISO level.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's not a tech gig. Let's be honest, fellas. Right.
But you have to understand technology to it.
Still code. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but they understand software and how the internet works as part of their job, but also you have to understand business forecasting, how to manage a budget, and that whole thing.
Yeah, marketing, HR, financial aspects of it, public relations, a lot of CISOs out there. Jason, you could probably attest to that, you spend a lot of your time forward facing. You're having conversations with customers, you're doing podcasts, you're doing all of these things that are not skills that you would normally pick up through the tech track.
Oh, 100%. I mean, just in my role in general, highly aligned with marketing, highly aligned with our executive briefing center, which means, we're bringing in our top 100 customers to come in and have strategic conversations. So in many instances, I'm facilitating those meetings with our other executives and our customers. So yeah, I mean, it's full integration into the business at that point.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people, aspiring CISOs, probably watching aspects of this. So Mark, if I wanted to be a CISO, I don't personally. I do have another question on this. Do you start as information risk, go to business security management, and then to see? Is that your fast track to CISO?
To be honest with you, CISO tends to be well-rounded. So I suspect that your fastest track is probably to start in one of the techs and go to business security manager and then bounce to CISO.
Got it.
Just because, back to Paul's earlier point, there is a bit of technical acumen there. And sometimes, and you see it in some, especially the larger risk organizations, they may not be as technically focused. And there's an expectation that you're a technologist, whether you want to believe that or not, there is some expectation that you can speak tech. So if you don't really have that background, you're going to struggle a little bit, especially if you're working for the CIO.
So I have two of the paths down if I wanted to be a CISO, I guess. I came up through the networking infrastructure side. I have the technical, spend a lot of time on the business side from strategy. I just CISO's next, right?
There you go, man. You need to decide whether you want to be a CISO or not. That's the real big question.
Yeah, because I think you have the ability to manage technical people and evaluate technical solutions, or at least understand the technology well enough to help guide an evaluation of a solution.
Yeah, you need to be able to call them out if they're
Yeah.
trying to pull one over on you.
Yep.
Right? So
Yeah.
you have to have enough technical acumen to do that. Because
Yeah, and you mentioned it, and I'm going to bring it up. That's if you want to be a CISO, because once you're a CISO, what's your next move? We were talking about this in the prep call, right? I've seen some great CISOs move from industry across and go to larger companies and be very, very successful. But once you're in the CISO track, are you stuck as a CISO?
Well, there's a couple of paths to take, and you mentioned one, Matt. I'll call it climbing the ladder. So you start out, you're a CISO of 20 folks, then you jump and you become the CISO of 100 folks, and then you jump and you become the CISO of Home Depot or Apple, and that's a path, right? You're kind of in, or I see a lot of folks that I've worked with in the past lately decide not to be a CISO anymore. They've done their bit and they've said, I'm just not interested in the role. And they've kind of drifted either into CEOs of security startups or consulting. So, kind of when you're in the path, you're likely not going to go back down. What I've seen once or twice is if you're the CISO of a relatively small organization and you drop to deputy at a much larger organization, but that I call that still climbing the ladder. You just took a small step down to step up into a vertical maybe that you're not used to. So you were in product, you're in technology, step down and take a deputy CISO in FinServ, and then your next step is to be the CISO of State Street Bank or something.
Right.
Yeah, but I think Mark nailed it, right? If you don't want to be a CISO anymore, you're going to go into startup land, right? Maybe a CEO or an executive of some capacity at a startup, and that's cool. I've seen that work very well. Or you're going to be a consultant, and that's cool too. And those are very valid paths that you're still doing a lot of the same stuff. You're just not CISO for Home Depot, right? That's
yeah. There's a lot of stress there. I mean, I'll be honest with you. A lot of my peers burn out. Being a CISO is a stressful job, especially in a very large organization. So I've seen a lot of folks just up and quit and are doing real estate on Cape Cod or being a scuba instructor.
Yeah. I just went after the CIO role. That's what I did. Right. I mean, you know what? I would argue that I think that's a good North Star for CISOs to target. Why not get deeper embedded into the business? Why not align to the CIO and learn that role and potentially be the next in line to fill that CIO position or move over to a CIO of another organization, right? Could that naturally be the next progression? Because let me tell you, the world needs security-focused CIOs.
Mm-hmm. And CTOs too, I think, Jason.
No. I use that term loosely. I use that term loosely. CIO, CTO, that level of executive. I would challenge CISOs, aim for that. If you're in that role and you're CSO or CISO, aim for CIO. Why not?
And Jason, I see a lot of folks kind of knock off, and either to my point earlier, either the CEO of a security startup or the CTO. Right, they're the person who has the most security acumen in the organization, and they've got a technical background. I've seen a few of them jump right over to kind of laterally to the right of in being a CTO of a security startup or even an established security company because they've got the background in it.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. Mark, I did post the link to the GitHub repository for those that are watching and want to get more. All this is available on your GitHub repo. All the breakdowns are there. I think it's just fantastic material for helping all kinds of individuals that want to get into the industry, want to move up, or want to get to that illustrious CISO position. Great content.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you for joining us on Business Security Weekly, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Take care, folks.
You too.
Thanks, Mark.
And with that, we'll take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.